This is the Chery EQ, a small electric car built in China which launched on the market and is based on a car you may very well be familiar with. The QQ was once the cheapest car in the world when it was first produced in 2008. It was also very similar to the GM Daewoo Matiz. So similar in fact that the doors were interchangeable. Fast forward to 2014, the model was facelifted and updated to what we see here today. So this is the Chery EQ, and I'm actually quite excited to drive this. I've seen a lot of these around driving, and I've always wondered what they're like. These are almost, for me, these are almost like the appliance of the electric car world. They're cheap, rough, ready, and hopefully easy to drive, so let's see. So the first thing you notice about this car is that it is very smooth to drive, and it feels a bit more grown up than the Row we drove last week. I'm actually really enjoying how planted this feels compared to the Rowway. Even though it's not as nimble or agile as the Rowway, it actually feels a bit more grown up. There's a bit more visibility out of all of the windows, especially out the back. It's got massive mirrors, which is very useful. And it just feels a bit more, not refined, but enjoyable and a bit safer. So top speed on this thing is about the same as the Rowway. It's around 75 miles an hour. And I don't think we're going to be making that on this small piece of road today, but it does feel a bit slower as well. Give it some beans. It starts to wiggle about a bit as you get up to high speed, which is a little bit worrying. But this is obviously a quite old, knackered rental car. So, I think you could squeeze 4 adults into it, actually more comfortably than the Rowway. It's actually got 4 doors, or 5 doors if you include the boot. So it just feels like it's less of a concept and more of a real car. I mean, technically, it was based on a GM or Daewoo Matiz, but we don't talk about that, do we? So this is the next iteration of that, and in fact, this has actually been replaced recently with a very smart-looking car, which has only got 2 doors. So this was kind of their first foray for Chery into the electric car market. And it's not bad, it's not fantastic. But again, this is, like I say, this is appliance motoring. It's white, it's a white good. You could drive it for a few years, picking up the kids from school, going to do your groceries. If it goes wrong like your washing machine, you just get rid of it and get a new one. But chances are this is actually going to last a lot longer than a washing machine. These electric cars so far have lasted remarkably well. This one in fact has done almost 50,000 kilometres and it still rides quite well. Obviously it's quite tatty on the outside, again it's a rental car, and the inside has these lovely leather seat covers. So on this rental car there's actually quite an alarming amount of wires just hanging out the bottom. Some of them seem to be exposed as well, so let's try not to touch my leg on those. The dials on the front shows us a traditional petrol gauge but with an electric plug at the end. It's showing we've got about half the battery left. Can do about 54 kilometres on the remaining charge. And it's showing me also the RPM, which is quite useful. We're currently doing around 3,000 RPM and doing about 35 kilometres an hour. So the interior is super basic. It's got a very basic radio, no CD player. It does have a small USB slot, but it's quite plastic fantastic. But that's it, it's basic motoring. So if you look at Chery's lineup these days, it's actually quite grown up. The cars are becoming very well designed, and they're really, at the forefront of Chinese electric car design. Whilst they're not particularly popular here, domestic models generally aren't very popular in Tier 1 cities. This is an interesting attempt, first or second attempt at developing an electric car. It's fairly rapid if you put your foot down. Obviously, we're not going to go too fast. And it feels a little bit rough in the acceleration, a little bit lumpy. That just could be the age of the car, but it wasn't as smooth as the Rowway last week, and it's certainly not as smooth as some of the more grown-up competitors in China and overseas. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Tune in again next week, and hopefully we'll have a new video for you showcasing another domestic car in China.